Hey, sports fans! Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you after Game 3 of the NBA Finals. And as always, I'm joined by referee Chip Clark. Combo is out of pocket tonight, unfortunately. But Chip, glad to have you here. And what a time to have our best game of the series, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think start to finish, this was definitely the best game. You saw the heroics in game one by Indiana to come back and win, but that game overall wasn't a great game. It was just a great finish. Then we had a blowout in game two. And I think, start to finish, this has to be the best game. And I was actually impressed by Indiana tonight, the second quarter that they put together after starting slow. And then the way they wrote it out. I mean, forced a lot of OKC turnovers. And we got to give credit to Indiana's bench play tonight because they were incredible. I was thinking of all the different alliterations of like the M words, right? You got McConnell's motor, in my opinion. Just he's got that motor. And then I know you tweeted one out, that Breen said too, which was Matherin Madness and Matherin Magic, he said earlier. So, I mean, incredible game for Matherin tonight. And OKC had some answers, but then the fourth quarter, the way Indiana pulled away with it right there at the end was impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice if they hit some free throws on the Thunder side and maybe kind of, could have had a late game heroics. But, the game started out, I thought, right away with Indiana. I had done the video yesterday, I believe it was, talking about how there's a lot of physicality like on both sides. And I feel like the Thunder seem to get more of the focus of it, and in the outrage of like they're getting away with stuff. And I was able to show quite a lot of clips. I felt that showed that the Pacers were still doing the same thing. And I thought they came out in Game 3 with even more of that intensity with the crowd behind them and the referees. I think we're going to be like, I think they were trying to figure out how to control the game, how to keep it clean. And that, there were some quick whistles, and then there's some other whistles that weren't thrown, and there's some out of bounds stuff, which we get into a little bit. Yeah. But I think that, this was one of those things where the Thunder, it felt like to me, handled most of the runs that the Pacers had. And it kind of felt like they're a better team. They have more talent. And it really just felt like to me, like they were going to win this game. Even after that huge run in the third quarter, it was like, I think there was still a tie, or maybe like the Thunder took the lead back again. So I don't think I was anticipating that they would kind of just, go stagnant on their offensive end. The defense got amped up by the Pacers as well. They did not respond well at all. They didn't get really good shots at all in the fourth quarter. And, here we are with the Pacers are in the driver's seat for the title.
Yeah, and I think I predicted too, I think we all did, like after these first two games, I predicted a split in Indiana too, to bring the series back to 2-2. And I expect OKC to come out firing in game 4. But, I agree. And I got to say this too. I know Pacers fans probably aren't happy with us continuing to say that OKC is the better team, especially with them being up by 2-1 now in the finals. But I mean, on paper, they really are. And, I apologize if we keep saying that. You do get the sense that, and we even text each other too, like if SGA starts scoring in the second half, it could be trouble for Indiana. But man, kudos to Indiana for sticking it out here and then riding that wave, their bench wave, as I put it, because man, they really gave them some great minutes tonight, especially with some foul trouble. Indiana had foul trouble with who was it?
I'll tell you right now. Let's see. Well, Nesmith had 6. He fouled out, and Nembhard had 5, which it makes sense to me.
But then, gosh, I cannot believe I'm blanking on this. Who was the one that started? And
well, Siakam had 3. Turner had 2.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, and no, I know what I was going to say. He didn't start, but Bryant somehow, whenever he's in the game, he cannot play without fouling. Apparently,
right?
He always is, and he only got like 3 minutes tonight because of that. But he was in there fouling. But the thing is like you had mentioned about. It was funny. I saw your tweet about this. The right out of the gate, Dort holds right and wraps up and turns the opponent, and they called it right away. It's almost like somebody watched your video, right? So, but yeah, you see them trying to manage the game in those early moments right there to not let it get too physical, and I think they did a good job settling in. In my opinion, there was a few calls here and there, or a few no calls here and there that they could have been better. I guess we could, if you wanted to, real quick, unless we have any super chats already.
We do.
We do. Well, we could when we get a chance, let's talk about that potential flagrant near the end of the game.
Okay, yeah, let's get to that for sure. But we'll get to some to the super chats in 1 second. Don't forget, if you want us to answer a question of yours, the best way to do that is on the YouTube side with a super chat. It'll help us keep the show going. We'll really appreciate it. It'll put you up on the screen, and that'll be really helpful for us. So we have a couple in the pipeline right now, and I just want to make sure there's anything else I want to talk about on that end. I mean, listen, the Pacers fans, right? They should be frustrated because it just feels like the OKC inevitably is going to take these games, and then they don't. And it was the best game we've had so far, and I think there was connection to that between all the fast breaks, so they were able to loosen up a little bit more and get in the open court better than in the other games, and that just made it more entertaining to watch. Haven't quite gotten like the signature, like, oh my god, play yet, right? Like, the incredible dunk or like an amazing three. Like, it's just been pretty, good, solid basketball and working it around. And certainly, what the Pacers finally started doing more was getting Halliburton going to his right with get action by throwing the ball near the elbow and then running and getting it back. Or they'll screen before they do that for him, pick and rolls that direction. And it was interesting because at the very end, they ended up getting a pick and roll that they scored going to his left. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And, he's great. He can go either direction, but there seems to be something about attacking that right side where he can fire those one-handed, right-handed passes as well when it goes to his right. So they've got that down pretty well. I'm glad that I think that was what they needed the extra day to prepare. They had forgotten about that a little bit in game 2. And this really helped them in game 3.
Yeah, I think so too. And then I was also encouraged by seeing Halliburton be more aggressive tonight and not just kind of sitting back and being in a little cocoon from time to time, like just actually going after it, taking some shots. You know what I mean? If you miss them, you miss them. But he was taking some shots and he was getting to his spots. And that's what the Pacers needed to see from him tonight, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And, a couple of times I thought he got a little bit over, like, I got to shoot it. Like the first shot he took was just like, I'm just going to shoot it. I haven't shot it in a while. And that's what he's got to be wary of. The two guys that kind of need to hit the weight room on the offseason, Chet Holmgren, obviously, is just still too weak. Things bother him. Even if you want to say, well, there's fouls there or not, he needs to be able to go through that contact and have it not affect him as much as it does. And then, his jump shot is so slow to get off. They blocked it at the end there where it's just like it takes him forever. Now, he's so tall, it doesn't really matter. But, a guy like Miles Turner is going to make that matter. And I think Halliburton as well. Halliburton is getting pushed off his mark a little bit, too, on those. They're letting them on the pick and rolls near the half court. They're letting a stiff arm go, like Dort and Caruso are giving him a stiff arm for the shoulder. We saw that in game 2 in the footage I edited, too. It is what it is, and the other team can do that. I feel like they're going to be able to do that as well. But you could see him getting pushed back too far. He needs to get to the point where he's got enough internal core strength that doesn't bother him. It doesn't push him back out of the thing. So those are the two guys. Let's get to our first super chat because that's the one we want to talk about. So Cliffside, thanks so much, Cliff. Great to see you as always. Really appreciate the super chat. And his question is, what is a flagrant foul? Laugh out loud. So we had we didn't have Neesmith. We had Jalen Williams going strong to the basket. And let's see, it was Neesmith who fouled him from behind in the open court.
I think it was Caruso. Was it Caruso that he fouled?
I'm sorry. It was Caruso shooting it, yes. And then Neesmith fouling it from behind. And I'm going to check the play-by-play. Do you remember what the time was on the clock?
Oh, gosh. It was just outside of 2 minutes, I believe. But I can't remember exactly. It was 2 minutes and something, I believe.
Let's see here.
Yeah, you have Caruso making a play in the open court and then Neesmith coming from behind. It's a great question, Cliffside. So, but while Coach is looking this up, I'll let you know what was the time?
2:35.
2:35. If you guys, so the NBA rule book is free to download online. And so in the NBA rule book, if you go to the very end, it's comments on the rules under basic principles. I think the letter is Q. The article is Q. You'll find flagrant foul criteria. All right. Flagrant 1 is the general rule on that, or the general explanation of that, is unnecessary contact. A flagrant 2 would be excessive on top of that contact. But then you go to the flagrant foul criteria that you find in comments on the rules, and there's a bunch of criteria there. The one that's always highlighted on these broadcasts, for the most part, on plays at the basket and transition, are wind up, impact, follow through. Okay. So that's why you heard them talking about that tonight. But this one kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I'm not going to lie. We were texting about this play, and I thought that it should possibly be upgraded. But again, there's a reason why I'm not an NBA referee, right? So they know more than I do about this. But just from the outside looking in, I thought that some of the other criteria were met. Some of the other criteria you would see in that article in comments on the rules is the severity of contact, which you could decide whether or not this was severe or not. But then you see other language like a legitimate basketball play. And then it highlights something about a legitimate attempt to play the ball. In my opinion, this was not a legitimate attempt to play the ball or block the shot. He was completely playing the player in the shoulders. Another criteria would be contact to a player in a vulnerable position. You could argue that Caruso is in a vulnerable position. As he's rising up to shoot, he's getting his shoulders grabbed from behind. And then you'd find other things about the result of the contact, whether or not a player was injured. If Caruso had been injured on that play, they would have probably considered a possible upgrade. So those are things that you would look for. In my opinion, this was not only unnecessary contact from Neesmith from behind, it was unnecessary contact to a player in a vulnerable position and not a legitimate attempt to block the shot. So, and therefore, in my opinion, it could have been upgraded to a flagrant one. I understand the reasoning that they gave. There was no wind up. There's impact, but there's no follow through. I understand that explanation, and I can get behind that if they call those consistently like that. And I think they do for the most part. I just thought that some more of the criteria was present for them to be able to upgrade to an F1 on that play.
Yeah, and Richard Jefferson, said here's the windup, and we do see him have his hands above the shoulders and then down onto the Caruso's shoulders. Very vulnerable, because not only, even if you wanted to say he didn't get up in the air, he's going full speed toward the basket stanchion, right? That's vulnerable without question. Yes. I know I've happened to me when blind play pickup and ran right into the pole underneath the basket. So that was a problem for me. And then the thing that you have to understand, I think, is that it was Neesmith had the ball. Caruso stole the ball from him. And we've seen this at every level where the guy is embarrassed. He turned the ball over. He doesn't want to turn the ball over. He wants to get back. And somehow, and whatever, he's upset about it. And so, of course, he's going to be extra vociferous in his determination to try and stop the guy from shooting the layup. So all those things needed to factor in. They should have, here, let me ask you this. If they call the flagrant and then they could trigger a review, right? Maybe they want to see flagrant 2, flagrant 1, whatever. Can you rescind the flagrant on a review like that?
So this is a good piece of information for you and our viewers to learn as well, is you will never, ever see an NBA referee call a flagrant on the floor before they go to the monitor. They will always just call a foul, and then they go to the monitor for a potential upgrade. It doesn't matter if it's the most obvious flagrant 2 you've ever seen in your life. They're simply going to do a closed fist, call a common foul. They're going to go immediately to the monitor, and that's when they determine whether they upgrade, because they cannot rescind like that. So they would rather err on the side of caution, even if they know that they're going to upgrade. Okay. You call the common foul, then you go to the monitor and you upgrade from there. You never downgrade.
Great piece of information. Now, the score was 110-102. So if they did call the flagrant, it's 2 free throws and the ball back, right?
Yes.
So they could have cut it to 110-104. That's 6 points. The ball back, and then at best case scenarios they hit a 3, and so now it's a one possession game. That's pretty big. Without getting that. Now again, who knows if they make the 3? They didn't shoot the 3 that well. I don't think. Let me see here what the box score says. The box score was OKC shot 10 for. Oh, excuse me. They shot 10 for 22 from the 3-point line, so they were shooting very well from the 3-point line, and actually made one more than the Indiana Pacers, and they shot much better. So that's one of those interesting things where normally when teams shoot much better and make at least one more 3 than the other team, it's a pretty good recipe to win a game. So that ended up being a pretty crucial call.
Yep, it did. And listen, back to your point about them usually being in a good position to win a game if you make more 3s than the other team. I guess we didn't account for that bench magic that we saw from them. And then also, I got to comment on this, the turnovers that they forced. I know I already mentioned it, but these turnovers these steals from McConnell right after a made basket and stealing inbounds passes and laying it up or assisting, those are huge momentum plays. Huge momentum plays that can swing the pendulum to another side. And so that you saw a few of those in the second quarter, and you saw a few of those down the stretch to close out the game. And you can't understate those.
Yeah, I think the other alliteration we can use is T.J. McConnell is a menace. The way he was.
Yes.
And unfortunately, he saved one that was out of bounds, and they missed it. It didn't. It felt weird in real time, but sometimes I'm like, And it was such a great demonstration of hustle that you're like, all right. But he landed on that one. That was a tough one. Then the other one that they called out of bounds on Hartenstein. I know you commented on Twitter in terms of the angle. The referee ended up seeing it. From our normal up angle, you're like. I almost thought what happened was somebody flew by the ball handler. I think it was TJ. And I think maybe he thought that was a moment where it kind of got dislodged and when he threw it. But certainly Hartenstein wasn't anywhere near that ball. But
I promise you.
Yeah.
If we were standing in Capers' position on that play, because he's looking directly. I've had this position before, right? I've been at this angle before. You're standing directly behind Hartenstein. You're looking at his back when he reaches forward. And then if you see potentially any change of direction or the ball drop down after it passes Hartenstein, you're going to think he deflected it. It's something we call an optical illusion in officiating. If you have a poor angle on a play, it can look like, and I've done it before too as an official, had that same angle, somebody reaches out, and then you look at it from a different replay angle, and they're not even close to touching it. And it happens. Officiating is hard.
It would have been nice if maybe one of the other two guys, clean
right.
Him, but anyway, it was tough. But the game was going very fast. By the way, I have to check the pace. I have to imagine it was really, really fast. This is probably the fastest pace we've had the whole series, and that gets hard for the referees too. I think it's back and forth, and like my wife is watching it too. She's like back and forth. She doesn't even understand the game at all, and I'm like, yeah, it's fun, right? We're moving, the ball's moving, whatever. And she's like, it just looks like a pendulum. I don't even know. So, all right, let's get to our next super chat real quick. We got another Chris come on in here, but from Breakers, thanks so much, Breakers. I really appreciate it so much. This might even be the first super chat we've gotten from Breakers. J-Dub equals not looking all NBA. Here, let me just tell you this. J-Dub had a bunch of stretches where he did look terrific. And now I'm like, SGA is going to start to score a little bit too. And then there's not going to be an answer from the Pacers. That's what I was sort of thinking. So I believe J-Dub opened up the game really strong, if I'm not mistaken. And then let's see. Let me see what he finished. Williams finished at 26 points, 9 for 18, 7 for 11 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. That's a good game. Perfect for him as a number 2. So J-Dub, I thought, and then there were moments when he was the main guy. Like he looked better than SGA. So I don't know about that. TJ played like I don't know. He's using the poop emoji. Maybe let's read the whole thing. Maybe there's something I'm missing here. Indy fourth quarter starters were scary, awful on offense, holding our breath at that moment, but they held up somehow. All right, so Breakers, I'm not sure what you were watching because T.J. McConnell was like everywhere, doing everything for them and sparked them. His father was a coach, but why didn't you teach the kid how to shoot? Damn it. But then again, and I'll just say this. And listen, I talked to TJ before, greatest guy in the world. I'm sure the father's a great guy as well, great coach. But I have no doubt, he's a little older than me, that he tried to teach TJ how to shoot the way we have been teaching shooting for 50 years. Two motion, lack of rhythm, all the, maybe probably 10 toes to the rim, square, all the things that we know are not optimal. And that's when I see TJ try and shoot it, I see that's exactly what happens. In fact, it's painful sometimes when I see him pull up because he has what we call a lot of airspace where the ball is far from his head when he shoots it away from his body. It's really hard to generate power that way. And when he hangs in the air, even from 15 feet, like you can see sometimes he just can't get the ball there. It's tough. So, TJ, and it would be an easy fix for him too. And man, can you imagine if TJ had a 3-point shot?
Woo. Yeah. He'd be getting more minutes, that's for sure.
Yeah, and off the dribble, like he'd be pushing the ball. And I wrote in my notes, you can't really try and press him full court. They tried, and I think Wallace found out the hard way. I think maybe Isaiah Joe found out once. Like he just blew by them. Got speed, and you can't do that. So you're gonna have to get back a little earlier and try and contain him more in the half court. But anyway, so let's see here. But Indiana, the fourth quarter starters, again, I thought they were all very consistent and they were able to run the offense. And then Halliburton was able to create when they needed him to. And again, you're up 2-1 at home. That you're in a great position. That game 4 is going to be a lot. Like obviously, all the pressure now is on OKC. If they don't win game 4, they're going to lose the series.
Yeah. Hey, back to TJ real quick. 15 minutes. He got 15 minutes tonight and 10 points, 5 steals, 5 assists. That's a pretty good stat line for 15 minutes.
He only where he would have played like 25 minutes. That's what it seemed like. Wow.
I'm looking at it right now, and it said 15 minutes.
Yeah, and in 10 points, 5 assists, 5 steals. I mean, it's a great triple double. No, not triple double. Sorry, 10-5-5. That's a great stat line. Yeah, and then plus 12. Not a team high though. We had Obi Toppin. Listen, Obi Toppin was terrific as well.
Mathurin was, what was he, like, plus 16?
Yeah, plus 16 in 22 minutes. I mean, again, Combo and I have been talking about Mathurin all last season during the playoffs because it's like, man, the Pacers need him. And now we're finding out why. Like, the Pacers really could have gotten to the finals with him last year, the way we're seeing him play. He's that needed as that extra scoring boost off the bench. He's terrific for them. And another Canadian.
He looked like the best player on the floor in spurts tonight. You know what I mean? Like, he was making some brilliant plays, and his field goal percentage was fire, man.
Yeah.
He was really, really good
now,
tonight.
Will they get that again? I don't know if they can get another 7 for 9 or whatever. Let's see. Was that what it was? Where is he? 9 for 12. He won't go 9 for 12 again, from the field, but he doesn't have to. They have a little leeway there. Obi Toppin again. So Bryant is no more minutes for Bryant. I think the experiment is over. Give Obi Toppin the extra few minutes. The guy is changing the game on the offensive rebounding and just passing. I mean, he makes some mistakes too, but like, oh my God, he's overwhelmingly overcoming those with his good play. And the question someone asked me on Twitter is like, why? Why is Obi Toppin so much better than even like maybe Turner? And, part of me thinks because it's not like, Turner can shoot the ball as well. Turner can post up probably better than Toppin, but I just think the Toppin's speed, he's just faster. And then when they get going like that, he can move in the open court. It's better for them.
I love his jumping ability too, man. That putback dunk was a pretty good one tonight too. Another one like we saw in game 1. And that was an interesting play too, because I think I saw some people crying for an over the back foul on him on that. And if I may, just for a second, when he jumps up to put it back, I think he's jumping through Dort or over Dort's shoulder.
Dort hit him.
Yeah, well, Dort did hit him in the face kind of incidentally or whatever, but it didn't affect his ability to dunk the ball, so it wasn't called. And that's why we go back to saying the result of the contact is what makes it illegal versus incidental, right? The result that had no effect on it. But then also for the over the back crowd, Toppin gets to the ball first. So then he's the one that has the advantage on that play. He gets to the ball first. He doesn't go through the body to get to the ball. There's no displacement. Also, there's no such thing as over the back in the rules. There's no such foul as over the back. You either displace them or dislodge the inside opponent from their position, or you prevent them from being able to jump for the ball. He did neither of those before he got to the ball. So it was a really good putback dunk.
And I tweeted that one out because Caruso was guarding him. But I don't know if he would have had any chance because he had a nice running start. And at that point, even if he turned around to try and block him somehow, you're probably going to commit a foul on that one. It's what are you going to do at that size? Now, Chet Holmgren was around the free throw line at the time, and he's the one that needs to kind of crash and go and try and get in there and get a hand or something. And Chet lets them down too often in my mind. He needs to be better. And there are moments when he is involved in the game. He doesn't look because I think I pointed this out before. He gets this weird sort of sour expression on his face. He looks kind of mopey and down, and the energy is low. And only when he really kind of gets fired up is when you start seeing that play. So he needs to figure out how to trigger that earlier and all the time. They need somebody on the team. I don't know what it is to hit him on the chest, something to get him going better. Because when he is going better, he could be the most important player on the floor. And,
yes,
there are moments, but they need much more than they're getting from him, unfortunately, as a young player.
I agree.
All right, let's bring Chris in because Chris is with us. What's up, Chris?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Always great to have you on. And I was even trying to think of this. You first started coming on the show was probably 2 seasons ago, or is it longer?
It's probably longer. I don't know if you remember the locker room app.
Okay, so I was talking about this. How do they bring people into the show live? Mm-hmm. It doesn't work as well on StreamYard. It was Locker Room. Is that what we were doing?
Yeah, it was Locker Room, and then they got bought by, I think it was Spotify, right? And then they changed it. Then it just died out because Twitter came out with Twitter Spaces. So then it just kind of disappeared.
And so now, there's no real way for me to invite anybody else to raise their hand on the show like we did. So, but anyway, we're lucky that we found you that way, and you were already playing. It was great stuff. So I'm glad that we can have you here. What are your impressions? What do you think about Game 3?
It was a great game. Closer than I get. Well, I thought it was gonna go down to the wire, but the Pacers were able to create that separation at towards the end of the fourth quarter. I think that the OKC coach Dagnall, I don't think he trusted his bench enough. He played basically 2.5 guys tonight off the bench. When we've talked about OKC's depth and everything, how they have so many guys, but he only played 2.5 guys. So I don't know if that was a strategy. You want to try to go for the kill, I guess, in a sort of speak, but it didn't work out. And that kind of showed with SGA's play towards the end of that fourth quarter, or towards the beginning of the fourth quarter. Well, not towards the beginning, towards the middle of the fourth quarter when they inserted him back in. They tried to give him a few extra minutes. They took him out towards the end of the third quarter, like a minute left or probably less than that. Yeah. And it just wasn't enough rest, I guess. Every time he touched the floor, he would just lay there a little extra long, trying to get his breath. And I'm just like, I thought they gave him enough rest, but it clearly wasn't enough. And then the Pacers, they played how they usually play, right? They scored off makes, even when the OKC made the basket. Their pace was great. TJ McConnell was in the paint every single time he touched the ball, and was it 3 steals he got off poor inbound passing, which in those directly converted into points, I believe every single one of them. So, and that's just unacceptable because 2 of them he was just right in front of them, and they just passed it to him. So the turnovers really killed them. But the Pacers played great. Halliburton played great. He had more confidence, and I think his feet were set coming off those screens for his pull-up 3. I think he made probably 3 of them, 4 of them off nice. Those ones specifically. Like his confidence really showed. He wasn't taking those shots in game 2 and most of game 1. So it's the arrow is pointing up for the Pacers going into game 4.
For sure. Well, you know what? Let's get to a couple more super chats before they get a little bit too old in the tooth. Here we go. We have Braun, best friend of the breakdown. Always great to see you, Braun. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Big fan of the Pacers' defensive pressure, but curious, are people complaining on X about their aggressiveness too, or is it just OKC? And why is that? And I can tell you, nobody's complaining about the Pacers being too aggressive because they don't think that they are. Now, Chip, I was going to ask you this. You know, the SGA gets knocked down on that post up with almost, the shot clock almost expiring, and he gets fouled by both. I want to say Toppin comes over, and then Nembhard. They do the replay, and you hear the crowd erupt into a bloodthirsty chant, like upset that they called a foul. And I was like, well, first of all, I thought it was on Toppin because Toppin just gets his hands all in there. But then you kind of see Nembhard do his hip thrust into him as well. That was kind of crazy. But you saw, again, SGA like on the ground, winded. He had just kind of gotten back in the game at that point. Yeah. There was still 7 minutes to go in the game. So I'm worried about that. I wonder why. I mean, obviously, they're really hyper aggressive with him, and that's just going to wear on you, maybe even more mentally than physically. And that's what we're seeing. So they got to figure out how to get SGA more space.
Yeah. Hey, and on that play is knowing where the whistle comes from. The whistle came from the lead on that play, and the defender the lead was responsible for was Nembhard. Yeah. So that's how you know it's going to be on Nembhard right there. If the trail official had called the foul, it would have been on Toppin. And then Nembhard got called for that foul. It was his 4th foul. So maybe they could have taken it on Toppin because he was in less of foul trouble. But Nembhard it's what we call the belly up. All right. So when he thrusts his hips forward, you're not allowed to belly up the offensive player. SGA technically got fouled 2 times on that play, like you mentioned. So I have no clue why Pacers fans were upset about that play. I think it was just the fact that SGA drew the foul. He's the one drawing the foul, and they've bought in, and a lot of those fans have bought into this nonsense.
So why is it? Why are people still so upset about Dort and Caruso? And it's like a point I made in my video. Hopefully, you guys will see it. I know it's now old because of the game 3 that's played, but. I tried to show a couple of clips of like Dort, for instance. If you isolate on just him and watch him the whole time, you realize that there's not that many plays in a given game where he's actually involved. They go away from him partly because they probably don't want to deal with him defensively, which is smart. But there's probably like 10 times where he's either directly guarding an ISO or where the guy's on him trying to score, or he's guarding a cutter. Maybe a couple other times here and there where he's going to help and move around. But other than that, and Caruso's the same. So between them, it's like 20 of the 100 possessions out of the entire game where they're actually having a direct effect on it. The rest of the time, they're just guarding a guy in the weak side and they're standing around, whatever, like a lot of the other guys do. So that's fascinating to me, but there's some sort of focus on it. And I think part of it is like, if you don't get called for fouls, well, what was my point on that one? Because part of me feels like the absence of fouls makes it seem like when the fouls do happen, even more, more ingrained in their minds. But I don't know why they're not noticing more and more the really aggressive defense by the Pacers, because they are playing it and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it is great. And to Bron's point here, I think mostly OKC fans are the ones thinking that the Pacers fans or the Pacers defense is too much pressure or they're too aggressive. Because as basically somebody who's just middle of the road right here, I'm watching just to enjoy the series, and I'm watching the officiating too. I think it's been pretty balanced. I mean, I think both teams are being aggressive. I think both teams on the defensive end, I think there's been some physicality here and there, but everything balances out. You know what I mean? You proved that in your video that you just did, that game breakdown of game 3 or game 2 or whatever. And everything balances out. And a lot of the same no calls that you'll see on one end, you'll see on the other end. Right. And to this point as well, is people notice no calls less than they do calls, back to your point, but they also notice off the ball activity less than on ball activity. Okay. And there's a reason for that. All fans watch the ball. I've said this on here before, fans watch the ball. They don't watch off ball like we do as officials. So then when they see a replay of something and they see somebody holding off the ball, they're seeing the slow-mo replay of this. They don't see how it affects the play. They just see somebody throwing it on social media to try to prove a point about physicality that goes towards their bias, right? And so we as officials, we're looking at off-ball activity, and sure, there may be an arm wrapped around a torso from time to time. Does it affect the play? Does it put that player at a disadvantage? Was there a pass being thrown to that player who was getting wrapped up? Did it impact his ability to get to the ball? Those are questions we're asking ourselves at game speed as officials. And if the answer is no to those questions, then it's not a foul. I don't know what to tell you. It's just not. It's not going to be consistently called a foul. If it does have an impact on the play and there's an advantage or a disadvantage gained, or if there's a possession consequence, like I like to say, if that contact calls them to or created a turnover, then that's going to be called a foul. So understanding the nuances in not just the rules, but the officiating mechanics is really important to understanding this. And back to Braun's point, you could see a lot of the same aggressive things that the Pacers do, OKC does. And I think it's been pretty balanced and pretty fair throughout most of these finals. All
right, well, everybody say hi to Lola.
Hey, Lola.
Hey.
Scratching the door, and now it's all right. You gonna go down? Okay. So anyhow, and also, I mean, listen, watching them hard in the backcourt against SGA, it's hand-to-hand combat going down there. They are literally, it's like he's blocking and he's reaching and whatever. And don't forget, in the video, I also said reaching in is not a foul.
Right.
It's only when they rise to the level of where it's causing an imbalance by the player, limiting their quickness or over contact, and depending on the body.
Yeah, it's SQRB, speed, quickness, rhythm, or balance. Yeah. If it hinders their speed, quickness, rhythm, or balance, or impedes their freedom of movement, and it puts them at a disadvantage. So, for example, in the backcourt, when you're 70 feet away from the basket, some of that hand fighting is going to go on. Unless it prevents them from getting across half court in 8 seconds, they're probably not going to call some of that unless it's overly egregious. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you just got to wrap your head around that fact. It's just the way that it is. Yeah. That's officiating.
All right, let's get to our next super chat. So the Shiny Haxorus, thanks so much. Great to see you. It's been a little bit of a time, but thank you for being part of the show. Don't feel like it's right to debate the flagrant foul and not the obvious uncalled Dort foul on Hallie at the end that caused a turnover. I ran up to get everything prepped in the last, did I miss something?
That's when Hallie was on the right wing. I think he either pump faked, then he drove, and he does his little in the air pump fake pass thing, and he went for a shot, and I think Dort may have hit him on the elbow. They didn't show the replay. I think they only showed it once, so it's hard to show it. And then it goes and they go in transition, and then
Can I tell? Thank you for refreshing my memory. If you mind, or do you mind real quick if I say why they didn't call that a foul?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm not saying that it wasn't a foul, okay? And you're right to say maybe it's not fair to debate the flagrant on the other end and not talking about this one. So I'm glad glad you brought it up. And Chris, thanks for refreshing my memory on that. As Hallie goes up, there's a swipe right there and contact to the off arm. Then it looks like Hallie is going to pass.
Yeah.
And so as officials, we're taught to be patient in that situation, see the play through to completion, because if he completes a pass right there and it goes to its intended target, because it looks like he was passing, right? And then he kind of pulls it back and then just shoots him off balance. By then it's way too late to blow the whistle. And so they just got caught with their pants down, to be honest with you. It was a foul. You're absolutely right about that. So it's fair to bring that up as well. It was a foul, but in that situation, if it didn't hinder him from making his normal offensive movement, then it's incidental contact. And so his normal offensive movement in that situation, he gets his hand kind of pulled off the ball and looks like he's about to pass, pulls it back, then shoots. Too late to blow a whistle then. That's why it wasn't called, but I think it should have been.
Good point. Great question. Thanks for the question, Shiny Hextrix, and great explanation. Cliffside's back with us. Thanks again. Cliff's always been there for us. Do you believe in doing conditioning during the season, Coach? RJ pointed out how tired the players were, and I agree that the fatigue was noticeable. So, when I was growing up, there used to be this notion that you wouldn't lift during the season, right? That was like a big, whatever. And then we realized that over the course of like this 8 or let's say 4 months of the season, you lose so much strength that you better be lifting during the season A. So that's one thing that like they threw out of the whatever a long time ago. Now, as far as conditioning itself, I mean, absolutely, you got to be doing conditioning. And, NBA teams don't really practice. So don't try and imagine like an NBA team, they blow the whistle and then they get on the line and they start running suicide. Like none of that happens. Sometimes they go up and down 5-on-0 because, again, they don't want to risk anybody getting hurt in doing any kind of 5-on-5. Now, that said, I do believe I heard like the Cavaliers were doing some 5-on-5 in practice. I can confirm that. I'll try and find out for the next show, which would be like, I've seen, countless NBA practices. I've never really seen 5-on-5. So if they were doing that, that's impressive. So it's on them. They need to be doing their own work, to stay in shape. The only problem is if you want to do it like on a treadmill or anything like that, it doesn't simulate the game. So you got to be able to start and in brief bursts in the HIIT training that you got to be able to, to help you translate that for the games. So that's not easy. And they shouldn't be tired. You really haven't. That's a problem. Even when you're getting into like the 39, 40 minutes a game mode, they need to be better. And certainly SGA, for whatever reason, he looked really winded.
Yeah, he's the only one that stood out to me that actually looked tired. He's the hub. He does everything on offense. And that one possession where the Pacers get the stop, and of course Siakam is already at the free throw line, and Shea was the person to pick him up, and he just lets him go by, and I think they go up by either 9 or 10 at that possession. That was the possession, either foul or something. He just let him go because he was completely exhausted. Right, with like 2 minutes and some change left in the game. So,
well, let's get to our next super chat. Will Phelps, thank you so much, Will. Really, really appreciate it. Very generous of you. Thank you for providing these breakdowns, Coach. You're the first channel I pull up after the games. Well, thank you, Will. I appreciate it. Really great to have you on the show. And I mean, listen, if you have a question, throw it in the chat. Maybe I can find it. But thank you for the wonderful words. I really appreciate it. Let's get to another best friend of the breakdown, the Drew Show. Let's see what he's been enjoying during the game or after the game. All caps, SGA free throw merchant, free throw made, not FTM, not MVP. No free throws, no wins. Hallie, 0 free throws, clutch. OKC overrated, nerds wrong again. Okay. Let's see here. I will tell you right now. SGA ended up getting from the free throw
5 for 6.
5 for 6. By the way, how many free throws do you think he averages per game? It's something like 8 or 9, right?
I was about to say.
Oh, Shea?
Yeah.
In their let's see here. I think he must have had. Let me look at this. I think he had similar free throw numbers in the first 2 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably more in game 2. He hasn't the Pacers did a good job not fouling in games 1 and 3, if I had to guess. Game 2, they were fouling a lot.
Oh yeah. So yeah, he ended 11 of 12 in game 1 from the free throw line.
11 of 12.
Or excuse me, game 2. My bad. Game 2. And then in game 1, yeah, 7 of 8.
And he usually gets 8, 9, whatever. So he's only like one foul off from getting from there anyway. So I don't know about that, but he definitely wasn't nearly as effective. He got to his spots a couple times and missed those middies that you normally see him make. And then down the stretch too, I just felt like, he ran out of gas, and they didn't run anything for him either, and that was frustrating. So their offense is going to have to get cleaned up in the time they have between now and when is game 4? Saturday?
Friday.
It's Friday.
One game. So they have their work cut out for them in this short time to get back in the game and figure this thing out. Now they can, and again, I'm telling you, it felt like they were going to take control of this game and win down the stretch. And so they shouldn't feel too bad about themselves, but they certainly now, the youngest team in the league, have a lot of pressure on them. It's probably the most pressure they've had on them all playoff long, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean,
they haven't been down 2-1 before. They haven't been down by a game like this.
What wasn't it versus Denver? Weren't they down 2-1 versus Denver?
No, it was 1-1, right? And then they were.
No, I think they were down 2-1.
Denver series.
They were down 2-1. Yep, 2-1.
Yeah.
Denver won game 1. They won game 2 in a blowout. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're right. They were down 2-1. So they've done this.
Kind of similar to this series so far.
Interesting, kind of, yeah. And then they won in they're probably one of the better games of that series. 92-87, they won in a low scoring affair. I think that was what convinced me, like, okay, I think they got it now, because I was worried that they were too young and they were going to still falter against a veteran team. So I think that game 4 was what showed me, okay, they could do it. They could play well down the stretch in the fourth quarter and take a game. That was important. So they got to learn how to do it again in the finals. Now the Drew Show's got another one here. Thank you so much, Drew. Coach Nick not noticing that Hallie has 0 free throws through 3 games and free throws made. FTM, aka SGA, has 26. It's called evidence, not bias. Oh my God, balance out. LOL. Hallie didn't have a free throw tonight.
Well, Halliburton doesn't drive the ball that much. He's not he gets in the paint to either pass or shoot a floater. He isn't. He's not that type of driver.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't. He's too. He's not strong enough, really. Like he's not the guy. And SGA doesn't have to look as strong, but he has much more core strength than anybody might imagine. But yeah, Hallie doesn't like it, and I don't. And listen, he gets pushed back on like the little stuff they're doing in half court and in the back court. On again, like we said, he needs to get stronger for that stuff to really be the dominant player that he can be. Right. I'm glad to see. Also in games, I was getting worried about Hallie. I'm like, well, what does Hallie really do? What does he do well? Like he's got the floater. Floater's got down, right? Floater's got a really good floater game. The 3-point shot, which is ugly, he can knock down 3-point shots. He's won I don't know if he won the 3-point contest, whatever. The passing, he's really good at, right? Like almost one of the best in passing. So okay, but let's even if the scoring stuff, it's like, well, what was it? So the floater and then the 3. And I think it's time for him to continue to develop that a little bit more and figure out some other ways to score the ball when they need him to. And meanwhile, and they've got a nice by committee going on right now. And then when Mathurin can come in and do 9 for 12, I mean, like that's
Mathurin is good at the things Halliburton isn't. So it's a nice little switch up when he comes in with those minutes that Halliburton's on the bench, because he is showing that he can carry an offense for a good 6-7 minutes.
I mean, it's sacrilegious, but you can almost think, can Mathurin start?
I think next season it's going to be hard for him not to.
Yeah. Now, because Nesmith, in my mind, like they think, I'm sure that he's a better defender, and he is. But they're playing Mathurin defensively like he's Nesmith sometimes. Like he's pressing, and he's guarding.
He comes in for him, right? So
Yeah, but I don't think there are times when he's getting caught on the SGA and like he's getting scored on. Like he's not. He needs to get better at that.
Yeah.
But like it's overwhelming on the other side of the ball where okay he gets up a couple buckets here, but he's going to give you 5 buckets, in the same time span. So it's like that's a win for them. So because again you don't want to fall behind like they did against OKC. That's tough. You can't do that too often. So I'm almost thinking, like, first of all, get rid of the Thomas Ryan minutes, just give Toppin, get him to 27 or 28, whatever that's going to be. And then Mathurin, man. And then, I don't see how TJ McConnell plays 15 minutes. I don't know. They got to figure out how to get him some more minutes, too. So, Carlisle's in a good situation, I guess, on that end, especially at the 2-1 lead. Let's get to another super chat real quick. So, J3 Productions. Thanks so much, J3. Hey Nick, you don't think SGA he got away with 2 to 4 push-offs on his jumpers? I don't think his fans were mad at OKC, but SGA gets away with illegal contact. So I texted you Chip during one of the games where he had one where he brings the off arm up a bit. The arm stays bent, but I can't deny that there are times when he is using a more vociferous. I guess I don't know. I don't think I put it in the damn video, did I, Chip? Right?
We discussed it when you were preparing to do your breakdown video, and you sent me a few plays, and one of them I said definitely not an offensive foul for a push off, and the other one I said I think that one should have been called. Yeah. Then we had the one tonight that you text about, and you said SGA off arm ? And I said no, there's no elbow to wrist extension. That was not an offensive foul. It's a retreating defender. Yeah, defender's momentum is taking him that way already. It's just the shoulder to fill out contact. The defender continues moving in that retreating manner, and then SGA pulls back to create space.
Here's not an if I make the contact, I don't straighten my arm at all, keep it bent 90 degrees perfectly, then I go like that with the shoulder part. I'm driving the shoulder part, but this doesn't move and it stays in. Like it kind of okay. There's no wrist extension from the elbow wrist. But like it's you're using it a bit of as a battering ram. I think it's tough, and I think players have done this forever. Like Michael Jordan did not push off. Okay, let's get that clear. But like players have been doing that for a long time, and again that might be what after a block charge calls, like that might be one of the harder ones to have to deal with. I would imagine as a ref when you're trying to figure out on a good offensive play.
Yeah, and the reason why it's tough is because you have a couple of things to look at. So you've got the retreating defender. So we're looking also what you just mentioned. Rarely do you see, I don't want to say rarely, you see it from time to time. Rarely do you see the dribbler though with an already extended arm bar throwing it into the defender that's on his side. Usually what you see is the arm collapsed to start, and then when they go to pull back, the arm comes out, right? And then sometimes you'll see the elbow to wrist extension. And guys, what we mean by that is if the defender's body is this hand right here, if I go from elbow and I'm pushing out, and then the last point of contact from my arm bar onto the defender is my wrist, then that means I pushed off. So that means I extended my arm illegally to push off and clear out that defender. If I go from the point of contact being from the elbow to the wrist, right? In the absence of that, we've got to decide, is this arm coming up a result of the defender's momentum carrying them back and quote unquote pulling the chair out from under the arm? Or is it a result of them using force to dislodge or displace that defender? Well, the reason why that's tough is because usually these are moving players, right? They're two moving players where a defender is moving in this direction already, and you got one player pulling back while their arm is out, the offensive player pulling the ball back. And so we can't tell if there's no extension. Sometimes you can't tell if that's a result, their movement back in a retreating angle is a result of force from an extension or a result of their momentum carrying them that way.
Yeah, and then the part of the thing they have to deal with defensively, we have to get more of offensive footwork back into the defensive side. So what we try and train is almost lift both your feet in the air on a play like that as a defender, and if you rotate a little bit to land your feet both at the same time, you can you can bounce right back into the play and get your hand up versus them, crumpling to the ground or moving backwards and continually moving backwards. So you can kind of use that against the offensive players a little bit too and maintain your pressure on them. So that's all part of it too. We need to kind of get better at. I think sometimes the defensive player just kind of gives up in a way on those, and they don't need to. But again, we saw SGA. he didn't get the foul call on a couple of those, which is fine. And then he didn't hit the shot either on a couple of those, which we thought, which was big. So, those are the ones we normally see him go.
If I can say this real quick, the one that you sent me from the last game that I did say I felt should have been an offensive foul call, and this is something to look at too, is because he threw his arm out there and used force, but then also it's easier to notice because the defender on that play that you sent me was Neesmith, who tries to stop to recover, Nimhart or Neesmith, one of the two, who tries to stop and recover, and his feet end up sliding along the floor because his momentum is carrying so much from the push rather than him running. So in my opinion, that disadvantaged the defender from getting out to close out, and that's why it should have been called an offense.
Nice. Well, let's get to another super chat here. We have the Drew Show's back. Thanks so much, Drew. Always great to have you. It's going to balance. Hallie will get 25 free throws the next 2 games. I guarantee he'll get more than 0 in game 4. I don't know. I feel like if I had to make a bet, I would say he'd get more than 0. He'll probably end up being, more aggressive. He's like, oh, that was great. I want to be even more aggressive. And, you'll find somewhere out there they're going to foul. I mean, listen, Dort and Caruso, they'll take fouls sometimes. They took one on a jump shot fake. Dort did on the wing. I think it might have been Hallie. I put that in the video too. And, he didn't try and slow up. He didn't try and get out of the way. I think he's like, fine, I'm going to let him know I'm there. I'm going to give him a nice shot, get him off his rhythm a little bit. And that's what you're supposed to do. Like, you got 6 fouls, you can use them. And then depending on, if you only have like 1 foul and it's like late in the third quarter, like, yeah, you could take one. And again, that's when you see guys get really hot on offense. That's the solution sometimes. It's just take a hard foul and get them off.
I don't think players or teams or whatever, I don't think they do that enough in the NBA today.
Yeah. Oh, without question. They don't know about it. They're not coaching. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. I was that guy, by the way, in case you're wondering. Because I would get hot. I would know what would bother me. Like that. I was the original 3-and-D, believe it or not.
The OG 3-and-D.
Yeah. So Jay Greedo, great. Thanks so much for being part of the show. Not a hater, but does SGA travel when he sets his balance for shots? Well, they caught him on one when he got really all up. Another one of those things where it was like the pressure was getting to him. Right. He came. He kind of like carried it slightly at the end before he gathered, and then he like did the tiptoe stuff, and then like they got him. Thank God, brothers got him, because I was about. What's funny is as soon as it happened, I fumbled to get my phone because I'm like, oh, I gotta share this one, and then they called it like, oh, thank God, because I was like, they blew that one. But what do you guys think? Do you think he's traveling?
What wasn't that play you're talking about? Wasn't that off a handoff, like towards the top of the key, or was that a different travel that he had?
The one he got called for a travel on was around the top of the key, where he's getting ready to try. He's trying to come to a legal stop and then pass, and then he went gather on left, right, left, right. So 3 steps after the gather, and it was in a quick succession.
And I think his legs got crossed or something at some point.
It was weird. And RJ had a great saying. He said, "When you're not, what was it? When you're not in rhythm."
Well, he sang from Careless Whisper. Guilty feet have got no rhythm.
That's right.
Exactly. That's true.
And then my wife was yelling at me because I kept singing the rest of the song.
Can you sing it for us on the show if somebody gives it?
Better than the tree of a friend. I'll get my guitar out next time. We'll sing Faith for everybody. But now as far as the travels go, so I think I know what he talks about. A lot of times he'll come to a screeching stop. He'll pull back on the dribble, and then he kind of gets like a left-right as he's getting his feet. But with the NBA rules and the gather step, Chip, you can confirm this. I feel like that left-right would probably isn't necessarily. It would be a travel technically like at the college and high school level. But if you went through and looked at the gather step, I'm sure that it is legal that what he's doing. Can you picture that?
Yep, 100%. And so a lot of the times on the pullbacks, what we see is a hard plant with the right foot, that lead foot when he's stepping back to his back left. Mm-hmm. Hard plant with that lead foot, the right foot, and ends his dribble with both hands. That's the gather. Gather on right, steps back to the left for step 1, plants the right again for step 2, and that's your legal allowable 2 steps after the gather into the shot. Sometimes, if I'm interpreting what Jay Greedo is saying correctly, there are sometimes, like you said, he comes to a screeching halt where maybe that trail foot will slide a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so if that's your question, Jay Greedo, another thing that's important to note is a sliding foot, a trail foot sliding is not considered a step in the NBA for a progressing player. Usually it's with the bottom of your foot, you're stepping on the floor, and so they're allowed to use those trail foot drags to help keep their balance because it's not considered a step. You're allowed 2 steps after together as a progressing player in coming to a stop, passing, or shooting the ball. And then if you come to a legal stop on your second step, then the first step, the first foot to touch the floor after together will be your pivot foot. And that's where pivot foot rules apply, where you're not allowed to create a new access point with that pivot foot or lift and replant or move it to a different position on the floor.
And also, I will say that sometimes he might even the right foot's forward as he gathers the ball. He takes a step back to the left, and he might kind of slow down on that second right foot plant to go shoot it. And I wonder if that kind of triggers something in people's minds as well that might feel like it could be a travel. Like he took a little time, but you can take as long as you like on that step, and you can balance on that left foot, back foot, as long as you like as well. And so I think that might be a little bit part of it too. And then you get the sense of like he didn't step down because he's like, well, is this a travel?
Right, exactly.
He knows, and I think he's just getting gathered and getting his rhythm and his balance back. So either way, but I don't think so. I think in the NBA with the gather step, I think he's totally fine on most of those. I mean,
on the large majority of them, he would be. The only exceptions would be if there's like those, sometimes Steph does them where he does the quick, he throws in an extra step during his step back, a quick right, left, right.
Yeah, right.
But I haven't seen too many of those. But then you will see other shooters in the NBA. Just after they do their step back, sometimes they'll replant their feet, like just readjust them. And so I could see that being called a travel. But again, keep in mind, traveling is for referees in the NBA and all of us really, traveling is a peripheral call. So we officiate traveling plays in the feet with our peripheral vision, like out of the bottom of our eyes, because our main focus is contact, the defender closing out to contest that shot. We'll glance down to the eyes to make sure they're behind the 3-point line, but then we're right back to the defender and officiating the feet out of our peripheral vision. So it may be easy to miss some of those little minute travels. That maybe.
All right, well, we got to get through some more super chats before we get to the show gets too long. The Drew Show, thanks again, as always. Take control. Translation, OKC and SGA, more free throws, LOL. Okay, and then we got another one. This is a lot of all caps. He also says, listen to these lame excuses for no free throws. Oh, my God. Okay, let's see. Then Drew's got one more. I really don't want to call SGA glazing here, guys. Okay, well, we heard and we appreciate it, and we'll see what happens in Game 4. Shiny Haxris is back with us. Thanks so much again for another super chat. SGA should be allowed to push off, but the balanced defenders should be allowed to be more physical. It's been okay this series, but last series, nope. I guess he was getting more push-offs in the last series. Is that true?
Well, I don't think the defenders were as good in the last series. Jaden McDaniels is good, but he can be wildly undisciplined sometimes. They have Nasri, DiVincenzo, Alexander Walker was okay, but they're not as good as Nembhard and Naismith. Those defenders are just better.
And let's not forget, you might be upset that guys have a defensive reputation or something like that, but there's a reason why they have that reputation, because they are really good defenders and they do make those plays. And I'm sure the referees go back and check their work to make sure. And after enough times, and you realize, wait, was I too nice to that defender? Like, no, look at that. He really did get in position and he really did get all ball, whatever it is. So that's the other thing. I think that, there's a weird sense of like what would fly like in pickup basketball. We saw somebody on Twitter yell, that would never fly in pickup. So I'm not watching this anymore. And I'm like, in what world would you ever expect the NBA to be like pickup at all? I haven't played 5-on-5 pickup in a long time, but I don't think it's changed that much. You're calling your own fouls and all this garbage. So at any rate, it's interesting that if that's the kind of baseline we're dealing with, and then people are turning off for that, then I don't know what you're going to do. That they're going to turn off no matter. They're just looking for a reason to turn the game off, I guess. And then the Drew Show is back. It's all love with you guys. Chat, not so much. All right. Well, Drew, we love you. We've always loved you. It's always been great to have you on the show and hear what you want to say. So thank you so much for being such an integral part of this and always be there for super chats. Really is great. All right, let's wrap this up because we just broke the hour mark. What are our predictions? What do we think happens in Game 4 and then for the series?
At the risk of the Drew Show hating me, I'm going to predict a OKC win in. I'm just kidding. I know he's a Spurs fan. I'm just joking with you, brother. And thanks again for the support. I am going to predict an OKC win in Game 4, though. I don't think it's going to be like a landslide like in Game 2, but I think I'm going to stick with my prediction that I had earlier, which they split the first two at each other's home arena and tie the series 2-2. I'm going to go 10-point win by OKC.
Okay. And then for the series?
Let's go Pacers in 7.
Wow. Okay, Chris?
Man. This is a close one. This is a really close one. I'm thinking this next game is probably going to be really, really close. OKC doesn't lose back-to-back games. They're going to come out with some adjustments. If OKC needs to win this next game, if they don't win this game, I think it's over in Pacers in 6.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think I'm taking Pacers in 6 regardless. But
okay,
I think that OKC needs to win this next game before it gets too ugly.
I'm going OKC in 7.
Going OKC in 7, yeah.
That's where I'm at. I was at OKC like probably in 5 at some point, and then it was 6-7. But we'll see.
That comes as no shock to the people that follow you on social media. I'm just kidding. I'm not buying into their stuff. I just had to throw that jab at you right there.
I mean, listen, I love it when I get accused of being a fan of a certain team, because usually everyone thinks I hate the team, every team we watch. But
right.
And then it pops up like OKC. I'm like, okay, I guess. And by the way, the OKC fans are very, very confused because for all those years they hated me because of my Russ analysis. Right. So now they're like, wait, you can't like OKC now because you obviously hated OKC. And it was like, no, I didn't. Listen, I love KD. I love those. A lot of the stuff on that team was fun and great to watch. Overwhelming almost. So they were so good and so athletic. So I did like it, but yeah, it's never about like being biased. It's just me like just what I see, I tell you, and I'm not doing it for clicks either, which is really hilarious. I mean, listen, I guess I am doing it for clicks. I want to have people watch the damn show, of course.
Right, but, exactly. Nothing wrong with that.
What's that? The Denzel Washington meme when he's got the handcuffs on, like whatever. But either way, I truly believe what I'm saying when I'm tweeting these things out. So make no mistake about that. Anyhow, well, thank you guys so much for being part of the show. Really, really appreciate it. And I think that's about it. Everybody out there, Drew, particularly, thanks so much for all the super chats and everybody doing that. Really, really means the world for us to keep the show going. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? Are you in, guys?
In.
Man.